My sister's engagement gift was a $5.900 vendor bill in my name. You make more, she smirked. I sent an itemized invoice back. 3 months later, the venue sued, not me. I'm Alex Carter, 30, reasonably boring, slightly type A, and criminally attached to spreadsheets. I code all day, label my pantry baskets, and color code my calendar like it's an Olympic sport. People who know me joke, I could probably invoice the weather for showing up without notice. They think it's cute, and in most cases it is. Until it wasn't. This kicked off on a gray Thursday, one of those days where your coffee tastes a little burnt and your inbox is too loud. I was on my second mug, eyes glazed over a wall of tickets, when the subject line hit. Invoice past due, $5.900, final notice. The sender was a reception venue called the Laurel and Pine, a place I only knew from Instagram loops of floating candles and couples with 2 white smiles. The email said I had 7 days to pay, or they'd escalate through appropriate avenues. 7 days to pay $5,900. They had my name, Alex Carter. They had my address, my apartment, not my parents', place, not some old rental. They had a phone number that wasn't mine. And they had something else, a PDF, with a signature block that read, Authorized by A. Carter. The signature was a wiggly loop, not mine, like someone's idea of what a signature looked like if they had only seen signatures in cartoons. I read it again, because that's the kind of person I am. Then I read it out loud to my plants, because that's also the kind of person I am. It didn't change. The dollar amount didn't shrink because I said it gentler. I took a screenshot, another screenshot, downloaded the PDF, highlighted the parts that screamed me. My hands did the things they always do when I'm panicked. Tapping, filing, stacking little pieces of paper into neat digital folders. I checked my credit card statements. I checked last month's mail. I checked the exact shade of "you are being defrauded" in my mental color wheel. I checked until there was nothing else to check, and then I called the one person who could make this make sense, even though I knew she wouldn't. My sister, Chelsea. Chelsea's 28, and if I'm the binder, she's the glitter that spills all over the binder, the desk, the dog, my life. She's charismatic in that embarrassing, unstoppable way where you want to strangle her and hug her at the same time. Chelsea is engaged to a man named Tyler whose hair has never known the chaotic love of humidity, and they're getting married this fall. The timeline of this wedding is a Rube Goldberg machine of deposits and tastings and color palettes named after foods nobody actually eats. Meringue, pistachio, toasted macaron. The only part one was excited about was the cake. I called. She picked up on the second ring, breathless, like she'd run a lap around a mall just to answer me. "Lex," she sang, "perfect timing. Are you free to talk about the photo booth backdrop? We're between Flower Wall and Shimmer Wall, and I think Shimmer screams." "I got an invoice," I said, cutting her off because the invoice was singing too, and it sounded a lot like white noise in my ears. "From your venue." "A beat, okay? For $5,900, in my name." She didn't respond immediately, just exhaled a laugh I recognized from childhood, the one that meant I was being dramatic, the one that preceded ridiculous requests like, "Can I borrow your math homework?" and "Could you cover me for spring formal? I'll pay you back next week." To be fair, she always said she'd pay me back. To be more fair, she never did. "Oh," she said, sing-song light. "That." There's a kind of silence that happens when you open your mouth and nothing comes out. It's not dignified. It's that goldfish silence, the "oh God, oh no, oh please" kind. I swallowed it. "That?" I repeated. "The deposit didn't go through with Tyler's card," she said, voice soft, like this was a bedtime story. "I told them to try yours. They needed to lock in the date for the engagement party, and I knew you wouldn't mind." I closed my eyes because I saw it, my credit card number floating somewhere in Chelsea's notes app, like a loaded gun left on a coffee table. "Chelsea," I said, "I never gave you permission to use my card for that. Or at all." "Oh my God," she said, rolling her words the way people roll their eyes. "Alex, relax, you make more." There it was. You make more. Her favorite phrase, when the check arrived, when rent crept up, when our parents pontificated about fairness at Thanksgiving over a turkey someone else paid for. You make more. As if money in my bank account had been tithed to the Church of Chelsea. As if my earning bracket was a community garden where she could drop by for heirloom tomatoes any time. You used my name, my address, and forged my signature, I said, each part a step on a staircase I was building towards an end I didn't want. That's not relaxing. That's fraud. Don't be so dramatic, she said, and I pictured her with that half smile, head cocked, hair perfect even when she was wrong. It's a family thing. I didn't co-sign anything, I said. There is no family thing. There is a legal thing, and it's calling me. She exhaled hard, then softened. Look, she cooed. You know we've all helped each other, right? Remember when I used my student refund to cover Mom's crowns? Or when I babysat your weird coworker's cat so you could go to that conference and you forgot to Venmo me? I blinked. That cat peed on my suitcase. You see my point? She said brightly, as if she'd just proved gravity. We're sisters. You make more. Consider it a gift. I said nothing for a second because I was suddenly 10 again. Chelsea in my room wearing my sweater while telling me it looked better on her. I learned a lot of my adult skills post-Chelsea, like locks and boundaries and how to untangle a necklace without snapping it. Fine, I said, and my voice dropped into that low register that means I'm not fine at all. Here's my gift. I'm going to send you an invoice. She laughed then, real and sharp. You're not serious. I was. It landed in her inbox 2 hours later, gorgeously itemized because I am nothing if not committed to the bit. Administrative time, fraudulent charge remediation, 1.5 hours at $200 per $300. Identity protection violation fee, $500. Interest-free family loan interest, backdated 6 times, $1, $200. Emotional distress / ruined Thursday coffee, $20. Rush fee for wasting my time again, $250. And then the kicker, the line that made me smile even though I was still vibrating with fury. Gift wrap service. For your gift to me, $3, $630. Total, $5, $900. Payable within 14 days. I CC'd our parents because I wanted witnesses. I CC'd the Laurel and Pine because I wanted them to know there was pushback. Actual formal pushback. Not just the soft family hand-wringing we were all very good at. There were texts. There were calls. There was a new group chat titled Family Matters Smile. In that chat was the ghost of every conflict we'd ever had dressed in polite punctuation. Let's talk this out from Mom. Don't make a mountain. From Dad. We're all one team. From Chelsea, who loved sports metaphors when she'd moved the goalposts. I didn't respond in the chat. I wrote an email to the venue instead. It was the opposite of my sister. It was dignified, and it had footnotes. I explained I had not authorized any charges, had not signed any documents, and had not given my sister permission to use my identity. I attached copies of my driver's license, my passport, a PDF of the invoice I sent to Chelsea, and, because I am not above theatrics, a photo of me holding that day's newspaper. I asked them to remove my information from any contracts, to send me a copy of whatever e-signature they believed belonged to me, and to direct further correspondence to my designated email. I signed it with a little line my therapist would be proud of. I am not the responsible party. I made tea. I did my laundry. I wiped down the counter so hard I almost wiped off the pattern. The venue responded that evening, very professional and very ominous. The event coordinator, Elise, thanked me for reaching out, assured me they took identity concerns extremely seriously, and attached their copy of the contract. They'd processed the initial deposit under the name Alex Carter, yes, but the email attached to the e-sign was chelsea.jane94 @ and the phone number on file belonged to Chelsea. The address was mine. The IP address was also Chelsea's. The e-sign had my name, but the metadata had her. It was like a child dressed in an adult's coat. At a glance passable, up close ridiculous. I wrote back with a fist made of politeness and said that if they contacted me again for payment, I would consider it harassment. They wrote back that their collections department would review all materials. They ended with a line, "We encourage you and your family to resolve this amicably. Don't you love when strangers call your nightmare a family disagreement?" That night, my mother called and deployed her favorite weapon, the sigh. She wielded it like a sword. "Alex," she said, and the syllables sat heavy, "do you think maybe you could just help your sister?" "I did," I said. "I helped her by not letting her commit fraud in my name." "Now you're being unkind," she said. "She didn't mean." "She meant to put it in my name," I said, and my voice splintered. "She meant to stick me with the bill because she decided I could afford it. That's a decision she made for me." "We're family," Mom said. "Sometimes family does things without asking, and we forgive." "Chelsea is not a weather event," I said, and it came out too loud, the tea kettle scream of it. I took a breath and lowered. "She's a person who knows better." "Tyler's very stressed," she whispered, like Tyler's stress might eclipse my own. "They're choosing between the band and the DJ." "Maybe," I said, "they could choose between financial responsibility and consequences." "Please don't be cruel," Mom whispered and hung up. I didn't sleep much that week, a little because of the email, a lot because of the memories. Money had always been slippery in our house. Dad's freelance droughts, the quiet borrowing, the IOUs that weren't really. I thought adulthood would fix slippery things because I could give them labels. Money, labeled rent. Time, labeled work. Love, labeled sister. But labels don't fix people. People asked if I had ever given Chelsea my credit card number. No, not once. I did once buy her a winter coat she couldn't afford in college that she swore she'd pay me back for and didn't. Once she borrowed my Netflix password. Once she had my keys to feed my cat and gave the keys to a friend because she double-booked herself and the friend forgot to relock the door. I learned to secure my things. Chelsea learned something too, that I would clean up behind her because I always had. 2 days later, the venue sent the full e-signature trail. It clearly traced back to Chelsea's personal email, her iPhone, her apartment Wi-Fi. When I pointed this out and asked for my name to be removed, their legal person replied that names on contracts cannot be altered retroactively, but they would note my objection and, quote, seek appropriate remedies from the parties that executed. I printed that email and put it in a folder labeled Nope. I also sent a cease and desist to Chelsea via certified mail, and because I love documentation like oxygen, I took a picture of the envelope before I shipped it. 5 days later, a group chat popped up called Sistersy. It was Chelsea and me, no parents. She wrote, "You didn't have to involve strangers. It's humiliating." Then, "Tyler says he feels judged by you." Then, "I'll pay you back when the honeymoon fund hits its goal." Then, "It's only money." I left the chat. I sent an email to her, copying Mom and Dad, stating all further communication on this issue must be in writing. I felt a spine grow where a wishbone had been. 2 weeks after the original email, I got a letter in the mail with the typeface that makes you itchy, black, all caps fear, notice of intent to pursue collections. It was addressed to me. The letter stated that the Laurel and Pine would be, quote, pursuing payment through legal channels if not resolved within 10 days. It made me want to throw up. I read it twice. Then I stacked it with my other proof and mailed them everything again, this time by certified mail, signature required. I included a manila folder with tabs like I was auditioning to be my own lawyer, proof of identity, cease and desist, e-sign trail, Chelsea, invoice to sister. I even underlined the bit where their own email admitted the parties who executed the contract were not me. That evening, Tyler called from Chelsea's phone. He didn't say hi. "What's your problem?" he asked, voice dipped in that performative chill that frat boys audition with. My problem is a $5,900 bill, I said. You'd spend that on a sofa, he said. Even if I would, I said, I'd choose the sofa. I didn't choose your party. It's our engagement, he said. It's supposed to be special. So make it special, I said, with your money. You're embarrassing Chelsea, he shot back. She's crying. There are two options, I said. Cancel the venue or pay for the venue. A third option, steal my identity to pay for the venue, is not an option. He muttered something about me being cold. He hung up. I made pasta and ate it too fast. I wish I could say that was the low point, but the lowest point was a Sunday where my parents invited me over for dinner and surprised me with what I can only describe as an intervention, but with ceramic bowls of mashed potatoes. The living room looked nice, the conversation didn't. Let's not make this bigger than it is, Dad began, hands steepled like church. Your sister made a mistake. She made a choice, I replied. Mom tried. Maybe if she just apologized, I said, without asking me to pay $1,500 a month for someone else's happily ever after. When I say my parents love us, I mean it, but their love is the syrupy kind that coats everything until it's so sticky you can't hold it without it pulling and tugging. That night, their love turned into a metaphor I couldn't swallow. I left early. On the way out, I hugged Mom. She smelled like rosemary and guilt. There was silence after that, a good week of it. No new emails, no calls. I told myself that meant someone was being reasonable. I told myself that meant Chelsea looked at the world and decided to be a better person in it. At the end of that quiet week, Chelsea texted me, an olive branch that looked suspiciously like a check stub. I can give you $500 towards your invoice, she wrote. Quotes, doing the heavy lifting of contempt, but only if you put the rest of the engagement party on your card so we can stop dealing with this venue BS. It came with a selfie of her trying on earrings. I stared at that text until my eyes blurred. I wrote back, remove my name from any vendor paperwork immediately, pay your venue, or cancel. Those are the choices. Also, my invoice still stands. Then I put my phone on Do Not Disturb and watched 3 episodes of a show where people renovate houses because the only thing more soothing than grout is other people's grout. A month crawled by. Each week, something small. A friendly reminder from collections, a voicemail from an unknown number, a text from a cousin asking if I was coming around. It all felt like being pecked by birds. Nothing fatal, but so persistent you start to fear feathers. I answered what I needed to, with templated language my company's legal team would be proud of. I logged everything. The second month featured something new. Elise emailed to say that because of inconsistencies in the booking contract, the venue was re-evaluating their agreement with my sister and might be seeking redress. I gave the email a little bow and filed it under green shoots. At the start of the 3rd month, the silence changed shape. It went from nothing to something all at once, like stepping into a room with the light unexpectedly on. A letter arrived with a county clerk stamp that made my palms sweat. I didn't want to open it. I opened it because I am masochistic when it comes to mail. It was a notice of a civil suit filed by the Laurel and Pine. It was not addressed to me. It was addressed to Chelsea Jane Monroe and Tyler James Reed. The claim? Breach of contract and misrepresentation. I read it twice, thrice. I sat down on the floor, which seemed safer than a chair. The suit named the email address on the contract, the phone number on the contract, and the persons who had signed the contract. It spelled out the identity dispute, and in a tidy paragraph that made me tilt my head in gratitude to whatever deity looks after older siblings losing their minds, it stated that the venue would not be pursuing action against me because the purported signatory has provided substantial evidence they did not execute the contract. I didn't realize I was crying until a drop dotted the clerk's ink. I called my best friend Priya because she's the kind of friend who has tissues in her car and empathy in her voice. Is it messed up that I'm happy? I asked. No, she said. It's justice. But it's my sister, I said. Justice doesn't stop being justice because it's related to you by blood. I took my folder to my kitchen table. I added the letter to the stack. I exhaled so hard my cat lifted her head and blinked judgy little blinks. Chelsea found out within the hour. Our mother speeds faster than Wi-Fi when it comes to bad news. I learned this because my phone turned into a carnival prize machine. Ping. 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 Most were unprintable comments about my soul. The most printable was from Chelsea. How could you do this to me? That, to me, laid down a track I could have danced on. I didn't do this to you, I wrote back. You did this to you, and to me. I just refuse to hold the bag for your choice. She called. I let it go to voicemail because I didn't trust my mouth to be a good ambassador for my heart. Her message, in spurts, you're punishing me. Do you know what court costs? You always think you're the responsible one, but you're cold. Tyler says your lack of support is why this happened. That one made me laugh. A sour sound that felt better than it should have. Imagine the mental gymnastics required to blame the person you tried to rob for not donating to your GoFundMe for the robbery you planned. 2 weeks into the drama, the venue had initially threatened to pursue payment from me, but after I sent them proof, they shifted. Their legal team acknowledged that the signature was not mine, the communication trail belonged to Chelsea and Tyler, and the address match alone wasn't enough to create liability. They also noted, with some colored legalese, that I had proactively repudiated the contract and warned them not to use my identity going forward. My therapist and I high-fived via copay. 1 month later, Chelsea sent me a text that said, "Fine, we'll just lose the deposit. But you owe me half because you made this 10 times harder." I replied with exactly one sentence, "Pay my invoice." When she didn't answer, I forwarded my invoice again, this time with a line item zeroed out. Sibling's willingness to learn fee, $0. She did not laugh. The real twist appeared 3 months later. The Laurel and Pine sued Chelsea and Tyler. I wasn't in the suit. In the month since, a lot of people told me it wasn't my business to be relieved, that I should rise above, because family, because weddings, because love. But here's a secret about rising above. Sometimes it means you stood there while someone dug a hole under you and you refused to jump in. The day after they were served, Mom called me in a whisper voice, like the lawsuit could hear her. "Alex," she said, "your sister is heartbroken." The words shuffled around like we could beat them into new shapes if we kept moving them. "Is she sorry?" I asked. "She's overwhelmed." "That's not the same as sorry." "Can you call her?" she asked, like I was a priest, and she wanted me to absolve a sin she'd watched happen in slow motion. "I will not be doing that," I said, which felt like mischief and maturity all at once, "but I will email her," which I did. I wrote, "Chelsea, I hope you resolve this. I encourage you to get a lawyer and to talk honestly to your vendors. In the future, if you want a gift from me, you must ask me. If you want me to pay for something, you must get my consent. If you use my information without permission again, I will file a police report. Pay my invoice." I hit send and expected the world to end. It didn't. The cat yawned. The kettle boiled. Somewhere, someone learned a lesson. Maybe not my sister. Maybe me. Me. Tyler texted me the next day. "You ruined our engagement party." I typed 3 drafts and deleted them all. I settled on, "There's no engagement party ruined if you choose a backyard and a grill. There's only your decision to use money you didn't have, and your decision to take it from a person who didn't owe it to you." He didn't respond. I pictured him trying to parse a sentence with semicolons and baking a cake out of spite. Look, I know how the internet works. There's a chorus in the comments screaming, "She's family, and just pay it." And another chorus screaming, "Go no contact forever." The truth is boring, and in the middle, I didn't go no contact. I went low contact, enough that the buzzing stopped, but the line still existed. I didn't go to their engagement party because there wasn't one anymore. They had a small dinner at Tyler's Aunt Suzanne's house with a Costco cake and a banner that said, "She said yes," like it needed proof. I saw photos on Facebook, the only platform where Aunt Suzanne lives, and Chelsea's smile was brittle. Tyler's hair looked perfect. The candles were tea lights. I felt nothing, and then a small something that was mostly relief. Here's the part where I say what I learned like I'm an after-school special. I learned that boundaries are only real if you put a lock on them and not a bead curtain. I learned that "you make more" is not a spell that makes your money community property. I learned that people who love you can be complicit in your harm because they love and idealized you more than the actual you. I learned I can write a mean invoice when properly motivated. If you're still reading this, it's because you like the messy parts. You want to know what happened next? Fine. They settled with the venue. How do I know? Chelsea posted a story slide with a black screen and white text. "We reached an amicable resolution with our vendor. Please respect our privacy at this time." She deleted it after an hour. Maybe someone told her that if you want privacy, maybe don't post about it. Maybe I'm that someone. I didn't reply. When the wedding rolled around, well, wedding-ish, because it turned into a smaller affair in a city park with permits and a picnic vibe, I went. I stood in the back, beneath a tree that everyone insisted was symbolic. My gift was cash in a card with a note that said, "For the cake, only the cake." The cake was sheet cake. It was delicious, because sheet cake is always delicious, even when everything else is complicated. Chelsea hugged me after, a careful hug, like we were both trying not to trip the wire of our past. "You look nice," she said, and then, almost too quiet, "I'm sorry." It wasn't an apology for the ledger, but it was something, a seed. I smiled. "Thanks," I said. After a beat, I added, "You owe me $5,900. She rolled her eyes. "You're impossible." "I'm consistent," I corrected. Tyler hovered. He didn't say hi. I didn't offer. It was fine. Some relationships are best as well-managed neutrality. My parents danced to a song from before I was born. Dad twirled Mom, and they looked like a memory I wanted to keep. A breeze lifted the edge of a tablecloth. For a moment, the world was almost soft. I put my phone away. Now, when people ask me to define family, I don't reach for the Hallmark version. I reach for something truer and sturdier. Family is people who say your name with care. Family is also people who think they own your name, and the work is learning the difference. I used to think being a good sister meant paying the check faster than you could calculate tip. I am learning a new definition. Sometimes being a good sister is saying no. Sometimes being a good daughter is saying no to the people who ask you to say yes, because it's easier. As for that invoice, it remains unpaid. Every few months, I forward it with a subject line that changes like clockwork. Friendly reminder, second notice, still outstanding. It's petty, sure. It's also theater. And sometimes, when everything else feels like improv, you need a script. If you're the kind of person who hears all this and thinks, "This is small, get over it," you're right. In the stack of big things, this isn't climate collapse or war or the price of eggs. But it is a small thing that tried to take my name, and that is not small to me. I keep the folder on a shelf that I can see from my desk. It's labeled in tidy black letters, Chelsea Venue 2025. Maybe someday I'll slide a new paper in front of it with a sticky note that says paid. Maybe I won't. The folder has weight either way. When the sun hits my apartment just right, the plants look like they're listening. I told them the whole story. They didn't blink. If a fiddle-leaf fig could roll its eyes at me, mine would. I stood there with my tea and spoke to them anyway, because sometimes you need to say things out loud so they stop living inside your teeth. Gifts don't come with a bill in the recipient's name, I said, to no one and everyone, to my sister and myself, to the version of me who used to pay quietly, and the version of me who mailed a cease and desist. Gifts do not come with invoices addressed to the recipient. Not from me, not anymore. People ask me why not press criminal charges. I considered it. I even drafted the statement because I write everything down like it might save me. But I chose not to because 1, the venue did the civil work of untangling it. 2, I didn't want to escalate to a thing that would bake bitterness so deep it becomes part of the bread. And 3, I wanted accountability, not blood. Your mileage may vary. If this had progressed 1 inch further into credit damage, my answer might be different. 4 months later, I got a Venmo from Chelsea for $100 with the caption, "For the cake." I smiled, because she remembered the note, and because $100 is not $5, $900, but it is a comma. I replied with a cake emoji and forwarded the invoice again, updated with a small subtraction and a large dash of humor. In the memo I wrote, "Interest begins accruing at $0% when siblings show genuine remorse." She heart reacted, "We're works in progress. We always will be. Maybe the work is worth doing." Then, today, Tyler sent a group text to our family that the marriage counseling they started for communication, not because anything is wrong, is going well. He then added a winky face no one asked for. Mom sent a photo of a sunset. Dad sent a thumbs up. I sent nothing, for once. Sometimes silence is the kindest thing I can afford. And for anyone keeping score, the Laurel and Pine now sends their promotional emails to a list that does not include me. Every time I see a bride and groom posing in front of their floating candles on Instagram, I swipe past with a piece that didn't come free. It cost $5, $900. I didn't pay it. I paid something else. Boundaries have a price too. I'm good for it.